Thank you. Okay, my name is Karen Bell, and I was asked to come over here and speak about what's happening in Cortez, or I have this presentation I give. It goes into a little history of the village and my family's history, and then what we're doing today and what we hope to be doing in the future. It's sort of a kind of something I do mainly because I think it's good for the businesses. I think it's good for Cortez, for people to understand just what a special place it is. Sometimes, though, people will say to me, it's not such a good thing because it drags more people there. And you have to find that balance of where you don't want to negatively impact your community, which reminds me, I'll tell you really quickly, one year, I don't know, 8 years ago, the head of the tourist council called and they wanted to do bus tours. And I said, oh my gosh, you'll be run out of town if you even attempt to do that, because it's sort of an invasion of privacy if you think about it. I mean, we didn't want buses. I knew I didn't. And I said, you need to ask other people than me because there's others in the village. But we didn't want buses driving by our houses with microphones, even though we do have a walking tour, which is self-guided. It's a pamphlet. You can go to the museum and pick it up. And it tells the history of a lot of the structures there because many of them are on the National Register of Historic Places. Anyway, so for me personally, I've always been really big about trying to educate people about what we're doing. But as Ed said, instead of making it just like a big free-for-all tourist attraction, we like to educate people so they understand so that things like the net ban that happened in '95 maybe don't happen again, or people get a better understanding of what we're doing there. But anyway, so A.P. Bell Fish Company is, it stands for Aaron Parks Bell, which is my grandfather. He was born in Carteret County, as were a number of village residents, or the families that are there today. There were the Fulfords, which my grandmother was Jessie Fulford. She married Aaron Bell in 1920. There are Taylors, Guthries, Jones. There's a whole lot of the families that came from Carteret County, North Carolina. Beaufort is exactly where they were. And it's cool if you ever get to go up there because you'll see many of the Cortez names are in the graveyard, and many of the homes still have the Cortez names. There's the Bell House, the Fulford House. If you go to downtown Beaufort, where they're big on their fishing history and just the nautical outlook of what was there. But regardless, they all came down to Cortez in the early 1900s, late 1800s. Jessie and Aaron, like I said, were married in 1920. They had 7 children. All the families back then seems like big families. Jessie had 9 kids in her family, Jessie Fulford. We'll come to a photo and eventually that has a picture of the old house that fortunately my uncle bought. I'm planning on renovating it. I was hoping this summer, and I just realized the summer's halfway gone, so I'm a little late. But anyway, it doesn't matter how long it takes. It's just empty and it needs some love. The poor place is falling down. That's another thing interesting about North Carolina. If you walk through downtown North Carolina, you are like walking through Cortez. You can tell the construction of the buildings is exactly what they knew from there. It's the dog trot style houses, really high ceilings, cottage. So the houses were well ventilated. The air would go through the center, and no air conditioning, of course. But anyway, so my dad started running the company when Aaron ran it for years. He was a little bit of a rogue, they say. I wish I kind of knew him because he sounded like he was a lot of fun. He was a drinker. He was a gambler. He lost a lot of real estate. He'd buy it and then he'd gamble it away. And anyway, fun, they say, just a nice guy. He died in 1959 or 58, somewhere right in there. And my dad started running the fish house. Actually, a couple of, an aunt and uncle started running it, Doug and Betty. And then they came to my dad and they said, we're not going to do it anymore if you're going to close the doors. And my dad loved to fish. So in 1963, he started running A.P. Bell Fish Company. Interestingly enough, I gave a tour this morning to first graders, so I'm taking it up a notch for you guys. But I asked them, about fishing, what they know. But basically, we do today really what Aaron was doing back then. I'm not a big gambler, though. But my dad would tell you, you gamble every day when you buy fish. I'm like, okay, so I'm a little bit of a gambler. But we buy and sell fish. And in the 70s, my dad started building grouper boats. Every 3 years or so, he'd build a grouper boat. Because he saw the demand increasing. I have these ledgers from the 20s that show where they would buy grouper for 10 cents a pound. Everything's beautifully handwritten on these ledger sheets Mullet were 3 cents, trout were 5 cents, and I should send it to the museum, but I'm kind of a hoarder at heart, so I have a lot of this stuff that I eventually want to put into a building I'm working on that I'll talk about later. But he started building the boats. The first one was Kalijah, which was K-A, Karen, L-I, Lisa, J-E, Jeff. And then, Karen, you can kind of flip through these. That's my sister, Lisa. That's Thunder Bell. Funny story about Thunder was we had a Sandy Bell, which was named after my mother. It sunk in a hurricane. It hit the old Skyway. And so this was my mom, Thunder. But he said to me, don't ever tell her that. Because he would say she could roar like thunder, my mother, and she had a temper. But Liberty, we ran out of girls. Sexy Lady we bought that from Popeye Lewis, another one of the old families. And there's Kalijah. Rachel's my cousin. So today we've got Kalijah again. Today we have, I think, 17 boats. We have a shrimp boat, a purse seine boat, a lot of longline boats, some bandit boats, which are all different gears that go after different types of fish. But it's interesting, Linnea, I just bought that last July. Some of you might recognize that boat because it lived on Anna Maria for many years. It's a sword boat, sword tuna, owned by Warren Cannon. Warren was tired of the regulations, decided to get out of it. Everybody told me don't do it. I always think when the going gets tough, it's actually when you want to get into it. We got a great deal on the boat. And amazingly, they had one of the best tuna seasons in the Northern Gulf this year that they've had in years and years. So I'm hoping that boat's about to head up to Gloucester in the next 2 weeks. It's in North Carolina getting its refrigeration done. But regardless, this is longline gear. This is what 7 of our boats do. And longline is an ideal gear for grouper because grouper love flat bottom. So longline that's 3 miles on that reel right there. They'll stretch it. They might go long. They all know their bottom. They might zigzag. They might crisscross. They do all sorts of things, whatever the bottom terrain is. And that's what they catch grouper with. As opposed to bandit gear, which I don't know, what's the next boat, Karen? That's Liberty before I was just showing the facelift because my goal after my dad died, I've been trying to bring the boats, the boats do really well, and I've been trying to kind of tie the fleet together with the same font on the names and the same images. But the other gear I wanted to speak about was bandit gear, which is vertical gear. Vertical, just like a fishing hook and line. They drop vertical gear around reefs or structure because snapper tend to congregate more on up and down. They like ledges, they like abandoned boats, something to be in and around as opposed to grouper, which like flat bottom. But so that's our grouper fleet. I think I showed you the shrimp boat, the Thunder Bell, which again, you all know from Forrest Gump that they haul the nets behind them and they target shrimp. We have a purse seine boat, which is Alice Bell. Pretty much got all the fisheries covered. But I do want to comment about, I think there was a gentleman who asked about overfishing and is there overfishing going on? And honestly, I was on the Gulf Council for 6 years. The U.S. is one of the most proactive countries in the world at managing their fisheries. As far as I know, there's nothing being overfished in the Gulf of Mexico because if there is, they react strongly, quickly. They'll shut a fishery down. You hear about it more in New England where they've shut like the groundfish fishery down or different ones. But again, the U.S. really, really strong on management. And I know because I was a part of it and I'm living it. I mean, we have rules we have to follow. Grouper are now on an IFQ system, which is individual fishing quota. Each boat is allotted so much per year, and then you're allowed to lease from others. We land about 600,000 pounds of grouper a year right there in Cortez. And we own about 500,000 of that allocation, which means we get that every year. We lease about another 100,000 every year, pounds. And so it's interesting how complex it is. Like I have people call all the time. They're like, I want to get in the grouper fishery because it's very romantic. People like the idea of, going fishing and I'm going to make my living from the sea, but it's not so easy. Today, it takes a lot of money to get into it. Thankfully, we've been into it so long that it kind of grew, it grew and we grew into it. But this is another fishery I wanted to speak about because there's a number of fisheries that make up the Cortez, basically what happens there. This is a purse seine boat. The interesting thing about this boat and the next two, Alice Bell is next, that's named after my grandmother, and the next one is a little boat, that's the Barbie Ellen. That's Harry Mofield's boat. Those are 3 purse seiners that work for us. And those boats target bait, primarily thread herring. Right out here, they go 3 miles out. And you'll see eventually there'll be a slide that comes up that's called Village Pride, which is our brand. And it has a picture that Ed had, which is kind of cool that he had that picture, that has my uncle in it, my dad's uncle, so I don't know what he would be to me, great uncle, but it's Guy Fulford, and it's sitting on my grandfather's old net camp, which if you've been reading in the papers, there's been some stuff in the papers recently about the net camps. But anyway, we have a real strong bait fishery there. It's been, production's been down this year, but go to the next picture, Karen, that's the one. That is actually the Cortez shoreline before the 1921 hurricane. That's Aaron's fish house, my grandfather's fish house. That actually did fall down. We still have the deck to it behind our property, which we use to work on nets. But this gentleman right here is my Uncle Guy, or I don't know if he'd be my uncle or once removed or whatever you call it, but it was my dad. He was my father's uncle, my grandfather's, Jesse's brother. But, and so flip one more. And so that's our brand. Our Village Pride is, I had that trademarked, which was, I'm not an attorney, but I felt like one after I finished going through that process. And it was funny because I finally had to do it one night at midnight, get the barcodes and some of the paperwork, because during the day it's so hectic there and you get interrupted constantly. But anyway, all those are barcoded. I still get pictures from friends in the Keys or in Georgia. They'll find a box in a discount tackle or something. They send it, and I'm still always thrilled to see it somewhere, because it's just so amazing, I think, that this little village and all these really cool, unique individuals are impacting the world like they are and providing something that people want. This is the bait that goes into those boxes primarily. That's a thread herring box. Again, there's different colors of those boxes for different species of fish. The glass minnow was the first one. I think it's a green, I think, and the thread herring are the sepia tone, the old-fashioned looking ones, because that's what we sell the most of. Okay, now I'm going to talk about what is basically the Cortez staple, which is mullet. And like Ed said, they say Cortez was built on mullet, and today it is my favorite fish. Are you mullet eaters, or does most people know? Do most of you know? Because it's really, really good. And they did an article, one of the papers today has a story on mullet. But if you don't like to cook or you don't want your house to smell fishy, honestly, go to Star and get a grilled or a blackened or a fry. Fried, of course, is delicious, but if you want to be healthier, go for the grilled or the blackened, but so good. But these next slides, Karen, you can kind of go through them. Oh, and sandbar. Yes, of course. I'm sorry. Of course. Well, you know what's actually cool about that? You know what is cool? There are so few restaurants that put it on the menu, and I don't know if it's because the demand, people don't know what it is. So it's nice that Ed kinds of, they'll actually, I guess, take a patron a sample just to taste it, because it's so good if people would just give it a chance. I've taken people over and fed it to them not knowing what it was, friends, and they're always just amazed because for some reason it just has this image that it's not good. But I just wanted to show the pictures of the guys. The next one is Tony and his son. A lot of them, it's kind of a generational thing where they'll take their families. There's a lot of daughters that go, which is cool. There's some women that fish, mullet fish. Again, that's Tony and his son. And that's Dwight Andrus and his son. That's Ethan, I think. That's Rogers. What is his name? I can't remember. But anyway, that's one of the gullets from Palmetto. A lot of the old-time families around Bradenton, I don't know why they just all fish. It's just something that they've done forever. A lot of them now have, they call real jobs, but they'll fish in mullet season, or they'll fish for the fish fries in the summer if the fire department's having something. They'll go catch all the fish for them. Again, just more, this is offloading of mullet, more mullet. I actually took out some mullet pictures for this because I probably had 30, which is a little overkill, but I was trying to shorten it up. This is how sometimes they'll offload the fish. There's a hoist system in the back of the fish house. We look right out onto the Sarasota Bay, which is gorgeous. And there's the vat coming up off the boat. They also come in by truck and offload in the parking lot. Just more mullet pictures, mullet. Okay, this is what Ed was talking about. And the interesting thing about roe is it's good, but it's not that good. But I don't know, it's salty and fishy, And I think if you're a, maybe a caviar type person, and I think again, that's why so much of it goes overseas. And I'm not saying it can't be processed here, but honestly, the demand isn't here. There are people, a few, that that appreciate it. Like we ship every 6 months or so out to Bar Tartini in Ashbury Heights, is that in San Francisco? We ship to New York. There's 2 restaurants there that we ship to. There's a few restaurants in Sarasota that actually use Botarga. But honestly, the demand is in Europe or Taiwan. Most of our product this past year went to, 2 containers went to France, 1 went to Sardinia, Italy. And again, that's the part of the world where it's sought after. They want it. And so, could we dry it here? Possibly. But they have actual businesses that's what they do. They dry row. They're called dryers. And my customer, Alessandro, who lives in Sardinia, he also, one of his customers went out of business, so he's now drying product also. But it definitely could happen here because my dad did it and his father did it. They would take it on a board, the row sacks, put it outside during the day. You don't want the humidity to get it, so in the evening you bring it in. When Alex was here, Alessandro, he did it on top of his refrigerator because he rented a house. He said the heat coming off the back was like that perfect environment to draw that moisture out of that fish or those eggs. So interesting, just more mullet. Here is Mark, he smokes mullet for me at Star. He's cutting some fish there. He does a nice job smoking them. More mullet, there's frozen mullet. Go back one, Karen, can you go back? The interesting thing about the mullet that I think was already touched upon was that these mullet, there's almost zero waste. We even have someone wanting to buy the guts. It's just so hard to contain them, to save them for any amount of time. But the gutted mullet primarily end up in Colombia. Colombia, they are huge mullet eaters, huge. I don't know why. And mullet are found all over the world, but the ones from here are highly sought after because of the clean waters and the sand that they feed on. They say we have just the best tasting one. If you ever go to New Orleans and have one, to me it's like eating a freshwater fish. And I don't care for brim or bass because to me they taste like mud. The Louisiana fish taste, they have that just like earthy flavor. And again, if you grow up with that, maybe that's what you like. But I'm used to the mullet from here. But the frozen fish end up in, like I said, Colombia. If they're gutted, they will only buy gutted. The males, the whole fish, almost always go to Egypt because they won't let you import gutted fish. It's interesting when you get into all these cultural things, they want the fish intact in Egypt or they won't take it. But they'll buy roe. And I said to our customer, I said, well, that's just stupid because it's this, how do they think that egg sac came out of that fish? It's so, but whatever, okay, we'll do that. If it makes the customer happy, we'll do it, but I try to understand. This is the bait that we do. This is a thread herring. It's not a very nice pack, but that's one of the lower quality catches. It'll go for crab bait. And I think the reason I put that in there, or I know why, I wanted to just show that there's nothing that's wasted. If we save the heads, we save the mullet heads if we're butterflying them for smokehouses because crab boats love them. Crabbers, they want it, the heads last a long time in the trap, they're good attractants. So that's why I put that in there. This is that's a 25-pound box of thread herring. That will probably end up on a grouper boat or probably a grouper boat mainly. Again, another bait picture. That's just a sample of our box of that's how we ship things. That's roe that went to Egypt. The little tag, each 5-pound box was individually tagged, and this is 4 to 6 ounces per roe sack. That's what's in that box, 5 pounds, and then a 50-pound master. But that's in Arabic. And interestingly enough, it's written backwards. If you know anything about Arabic, which I didn't, but one of the gentlemen from the little Cortez market came down and he read it to me, and it reads right to left, so kind of just interesting. Again, that's a duplicate picture. That's the master. Another interesting thing about shipping to Egypt, you can't send wooden pallets. But yet the cardboard boxes are wood from my perspective, but okay, again, we're like, all right, I'll get you some plastic pallets. But and they're stacked high. Again, just this close-up of the box. I don't know, that seems like I have way more. Oh, here you go. You can't put wood pallets on the container. That's a 40-foot high cube shipping container. You have to stack them. You have to hand stack them, which again, if you can put the plastic pallets, why not? But he said, no, just hand stack them. So 50,000 pounds hand stacked. I was watching going, oh, that's hard. The containers are sealed, that we have seals with our name on them, and then that's, you know, that they're tracked as they go. I put this slide in mainly just to show here, you know, here we are, little Cortez, and I just put where most places we've shipped to Russia before. We've shipped to Romania. Anyway, all over the world. And again, I always think, what an amazing job and place, because this little bitty fishing village with all these people, and they're helping to feed the world. Is how, you know, what a great thing. This, of course, is my little restaurant. That's an old picture, so not the best. Starfish Company. And it's just Dockside Dining and a picnic tables, extremely simple. It just got ranked in, I think it's called Gourmania or something. It's something online as one of the, this always cracks me up. It was this week, I think, Monday, top 50 seafood restaurants in America. And you'd find it funny if you go Google that, because they're really high-end places. It's got like New York and Seattle and Hawaii and all these really amazing, you know, white cloth tablecloth places. And then I think for us, they showed the picnic table kind of with a box on it, because it comes in bait boxes is how we serve food. But I think the reason it keeps getting distinguished, I didn't even know about it. I was flipping through it, because whenever I see something like that, I look to see if I recognize anyone. And there we were. And it was just pretty impressive. But I think it's the quality of the seafood, most of which comes off our boats, if we can get it there. And we just, it's very simple. It's fried, grilled, blackened, sauteed. That's all we do. That's nothing real fancy, but it's just simple, and it's good. In Starfish Company, there's probably too many pictures of stars. You can kind of, that you can see, though, hopefully. Keep going. That's the retail market, the next one. A friend of mine hand painted the tiles in the front back in, I think, 98 or 2000. She did that for me. Beautiful. That's the inside of the retail case. Just a little, you know, small retail market that's been there, I think, since the 40s, that retail market, Starfish Company. He's filleting something. That's the back. I've changed that a little bit now. I added another little bar around back. Go ahead. See if there's any bay pictures. Well, you can kind of see there. And I think that's part of the draw for Star, too. I mean, it's truly gorgeous. It's just, I went down and watched the fireworks we just sat, a bunch of people. We weren't open on July 4th. We closed for the holiday. But people just sat out back on those tables and on the public dock there and just watched I mean, it's beautiful without the fireworks, you know. It's just the bay is such a pretty location. That was a cat who has since disappeared, but he came with the property in 2000, so I think he's just moved on to the next realm or wherever he's gone. But just more. Go back one, Karen. There was a funny story about that boat right there. Go back one more. Sorry. That's okay. No, that's all right. That picture right there. This is my cousin's boat, and my cousin is a very difficult person, Chris Osborne. And he had a rebel flag on it. And so this lady, a customer, was so upset, right? And I said, well, it's not my boat, and it's part of history. But she was just adamant that I had to make him take that off. Well, I knew if I went to Chris and said, you need to take that down, he'd probably put 4 more up, because that's just how his personality is. So anyway, the funniest thing, she wrote my dad a letter, right? To like basically say, your daughter's, you know, whatever. So he gave it to me and I read it. And so finally I sent her back a letter and I said, look, it's not my boat. And I was trying to be polite, but the stamp I put was, Mississippi actually has, and I wonder if they still do, but they have for their state. At the time, you could buy a postage stamp that was a flag. And so I stuck that on there, and I said, you know, and I tried to say it's part of history too, and you really have to like keep in, anyway. So she was mad, so I lost a customer, I guess, but so one less person in line to wait for, I guess. That's a net camp. The interesting story about that is the nonprofit rebuilt that, I think, after the net ban in '95. But Cortez used to be covered with those offshore. There were probably 20, and I think people don't realize it because now all you see is the pilings, but each fisherman, my dad said, they all had one. And he cracked up when we were building this because we went and bought Pecky cypress and we used stainless steel screws and, you know, put the metal on. And he's like, oh my gosh, we would find pieces of floating lumber coming down the bay and we'd tack it up there, and just whatever they had is what they made do with. But well, I don't know, because this isn't the one that Junior Guthrie, and so that's what's been in the news recently. Junior, it's on our submerged land lease. It's on our bottom in front of AP Bell. And I was watching him do it for 6 months, and I thought, he's going to get in trouble, but I don't care. I kind of like it that it's there because I think it adds to the history of what's there. So anyway, the interesting thing is that just is so aggravating. I could go on about DEP, but it's like they don't look to help you, DEP. In fact, they imply that it was never there, so I had to get involved, which I don't have as many projects, I don't think, as Ed does, apparently, because I'm listening to him, but I don't need any more projects to try, or battles to fight, but I had to get involved with juniors and go and show them our submerged paperwork from 1990, where we had surveys done where they're defined, a boat, a mooring yard, and the 2 camps are on there. DEP knows that. So I don't know why they're like, aerial photographs. Well, but they're fighting me. And then Mary Green called, and I gotta love her. She's my dad's cousin, Mary Fulford Green. She's 92. She's yelling at me. That was never there. And I said, Mary, I'm not going to argue with you. It was there. I'm on the shoreline almost every day since I got out of school. But anyway, long story short, they'll tear that down over my dead body because I'll fight them on that. The state has no place telling us what to do with that out there. So I have to take on another challenge of sorts. But it's funny when you get upset about something. You're like,
when they started challenging, I'm thinking, well, those things have been there forever.
Well, when he built it. It's not that one; it's the one to the west. But I mean, he's got an air conditioner in the window, and I'm like, Junior, and he put a bathroom in, and it has a containment thing. He's like, well, I'm working out here, and I go, well, but I don't know. Hopefully, there'll be some balance. I mean, I don't care if it's got an air conditioner, but he's running water from our dock. He ran lines and ran the water out there, and I don't care about that. That's fine. But I said no to the power. I go, you're not running power. Yeah, you should rent it out or something. But I like that it's there because, again, it's what makes Cortez unique. They're not found everywhere, and no, they won't be tearing it down. You can quote me on that. Okay, what do we have next? Alice Bell. Oh, I wanted to talk a little bit about stone crabs because stone crab season, if you come over now, the village has that nice ripe odor because the traps just came out of the water in mid-May, May 15th to May 25th is their deadline. And every time it rains now, those traps get saturated in the barnacles and whatever's the growth, which growth is good for the crabs. It attracts them to the traps. But boy, does it smell terrible right now. We'll go lime them. Like years ago, they used to lime the nets, which is why they had those. I forgot to tell you that. That's why they had those net camps, because they would lime their nets when off season and then put them back in the little room and then pull out whatever seasonal net was next. And they'd keep a rotation like that going. Well, we use lime today on the traps to keep the flies down and the smell, try to keep it a little bit quieter. That's just Star with some customers. That's the bigger kitchen. It's got 2 kitchens I had to convert. There's some mullet. And again, really simple, coleslaw, cheese grits, hush puppies. Our hush puppies are amazing, mainly because we have to let them rise. And most restaurants don't take the time to do that. And so they're simple as can be to make. That used to be, how many people remember the Trader Jack's? Trader Jack's. That was one of the beacons that was at the front door. And we've been trying to find the other one. I've heard it's in Bradenton. So we've been like putting feelers out, but nobody's ever said they haven't. Danny Barrett found that at a garage sale, believe it or not, and gave it to me, which was nice. It's in the hallway. That's, again, a little bait boat. That's just a throw ring. I don't even know what that's doing in there.
When your boat was going to come up.
Karen is in Alabama being rebuilt. And I looked for a better picture, but she looks so awful. It's funny. It's like almost a joke that my namesake looks the worst out of all of them, and she just looks awful. But that's just a block and tackle. My dad and uncle died when Ed was talking about. My dad was 89 and Uncle Calvin was 84, and they died in 2012. At that point, I got 6 houses that my dad had moved in with me when he got sick. He was 87 or so. He got cancer. But I got 6 houses full of stuff. I mean, they were such pack rats, so I have a little bit of a tendency. But I've got 5 of them cleaned out. And the one I was telling you, Ella's, the old Fulford house that my grandma was born in, that one I have left to do. But a lot of this stuff, some stuff had to go to the dump because it was just so degraded and rotted, but some of it, if you go into tide tables, I've got a lot of the old Marina electronics around the perimeter, which is kind of cool if you're a boat person, because there's paper machines, and like today the emergency beacons are about this big. There are some in there that are that big. That are, and what do you do with them, aside from decoration? That's just an old scale. Star again. You can flip by those. Those are kind of boring. Again, the beautiful Vista, though, really pretty. The food's really, really good. Yeah, pretty much. It's crazy. In fact, I don't know why people wait. I mean, I'd come back when it's slow, or come back in August or something. But I can't believe they wait for as long as they do. But it's become.
Get your beer first, then go.
Exactly. Well, and then I've had people say to me, "Oh, you need to put a second floor. You need to," and I'm like, I don't need to do a thing, because I think part of its charm is that it's just that. It's simple, little. Yeah, I don't need to do it. I can't imagine having more people.
Little side note, at the end of your dock, or the end of your tables, there's a public covered
Dock,
picnic
that's a
area?
public dock.
Okay, that's
Yeah.
interesting.
Yeah, that belongs, well, actually there's different views. It could be on Fulford's, which is another little fish company there that we own, my uncle owned. And it could be on that submerged land bottom, but actually no one claims it. The county hasn't claimed it. Fish sort of claimed it, the nonprofit, but honestly no one kind of claims it. So
anybody could go down
anybody can go there, except we imply to them that you can't drink there, which isn't really true. But we use that if you're disorderly, we're going to throw you out. And I'm going to act like I can do it, and I can. So don't do that. But it's funny because, yeah, they're pretty. There's a couple of guys that imbibe too much, sometimes a couple girls, and we have to say, hey, this is for everybody. You can't be out here intoxicated, because they get nasty and, whatever. But that's my Aunt Ella's house. That's the one, that house is like from 1900. Grandma was born there in 1900. We just pulled off all the green, what do they call that bad stuff? Asbestos. We had to pack it a special way. It had to go in plastic bags, be stacked. The guys all had to wear masks to do it. But my goal is to rework it. The funny thing about that house is supposedly in the 50s, before I was born, the back fell off of it. And it was just the girls left. And so they just moved the refrigerator to the front porch and the oven, the stove, and that's it. It was like, there's a sink, like a makeshift sink, but it's like, so I have to reconfigure a little bit. But this is an interesting house. This is Aaron and Jesse's house, my grandfather and grandmother, and that's the house Dad was born in. And it's beside this one to the east, but Dad was born in the little one, and then Aaron wanted a bigger house, so they literally picked it up and rolled it over to the lot next door, and then Aaron built the bigger one, which is that one, that's the little one. Dad was born there, but then they built the big house, they call it, which for Cortez, it's a big house. It's 2,000 square foot. It's got 5 bedrooms, but they had 7 kids, so again, I have a house there that they said 10 people were born in with 1 bedroom, 10 children. I'm like, how do you do that? Where do you stick them all? You go outside. But anyway, the houses over there, I really like them, and I'm lucky because this is my dad and I. We had this thing. He'd always say to me, you don't want to do that. Like I had a job offer at IBM after I got out of school in Boca Raton, and I called him. I go, I want to come home. And he goes, no, you don't. I go, yeah, I want to come. I miss this coast. This coast is so much nicer to me than Boca Raton. It's beautiful there, but it's not like here. So I said, I want to come home. And the same thing when I quit Gainesville. He's like, yeah, I love the Gators. You can't. And I'm like, I'm leaving. I'm going to Boca Raton. Anyway, I started after I got out of school. I would buy one of these houses every 3 or 4 years for like $50,000, $60,000. And I really couldn't afford it because I didn't make very much money. But the rent almost at those prices would cover almost everything I might have to throw a little bit in. And my dad was like, they built that for $1,000. Are you crazy? You don't want to, and I was like, oh, I like them. And they were fun to fix up because I tried to bring the beadboard back and take the ceilings back and redo the windows and all that. Well, anyway, then he finally said to me, I think it was like right before the bust, maybe in 2005, where he goes, I guess you kind of knew what you were doing. And I'm like, well, no, not really. I mean, I just like them. But I was fortunate enough when the prices were so elevated, I didn't buy anything because I couldn't afford it. But so the family has a number of the old houses there, and what I like about that is we've always put fishing people in them. So it's kind of a control mechanism to keep the village like it is. It's true though. There's a welder in one, there's a couple fishermen in some, there's one lady that works at the market, lives in my grandma's house now. So it's a way to make sure, one, that you have friendly neighbors, and you know the whole thing, I don't know if you all live out here or where, but there's the whole gentrification thing where we have it to a degree but not so bad, but where people come in, there are artists that move in, and generally they like what's there, but then they kind of start like saying, well, we need to change. You know how that happens? It happened with that net camp, and it's a woman who moved into the village is the one who filed the complaint with DEP, and I'm just thinking, you know, if you don't like it, why are you here? But everybody's got their views on what's important and what's not. Okay, this is I'm a little excited to talk about. I bought on Cortez Road 2 acres that belonged to Ham Jones. Mr. Jones owned the seafood shack, and I was fortunate enough, we'd tried for years, my uncle, to buy it because we own around it. And he wouldn't sell it. Well, when he died, his daughter agreed, and the heirs agreed to sell it to me. Well, what I want to do with it eventually is I'm going to put a commercial smokehouse up there, and then I want to do something. I've got these boats from the 20s. You can flip ahead, Karen, one more. That's an Everglades starter hull. And my uncle, who was kind of a boat-crazed man, Calvin, he had 61 boats when he died. I think I'm down to under 20 now, of which about 10 they're actually historic boats. They're beautiful. They're handmade with the types. They go into the woods and find the arced pieces of branch that would work. They don't look so beautiful now, but my goal with that 2 acres is to make the smokehouse. It's not a restaurant. We're not serving anyone. Everyone can take it and go. And the reason I'm doing that is I get calls all the time for people who want us to ship smoked mullet. I don't have the ability where we are now to do it, or the manpower, but if we get a smokehouse, we'll do it on that level, do it around the country, and then just locally people can take it to go. But I want to make it so you can walk through and see these boats. There are 2 that are they're sister ships. They're like 20-foot little scooters. They're the Frying Pan and the Skillet. How cute is that? They named them that in the 20s, and so Calvin, who was a hoarder, you can go to the next one, he's got this garage with, I think that's the Frying Pan. The Skillet, I think, is over one, but he's got all these old cool boats that are just now being protected from the sun. They're all out in the weather, but they're okay. But the goal being to turn that into some kind of place where people can come and see, learn about commercial fishing, how it was, how it then, and what it's like today. Again, that's I think a scooter. They even have the old steering wheels. I don't know if you can see them, but they're like little brass steering wheels. You know, they have rope around them. They're cute as can be. But so anyway, that's a goal with those old-timey boats. So I made sure we kept all of those. The next one is Cortez Cove. That's just Piero Revolta owned that property after Tony Huang, who was a gentleman from Taiwan. It was called Sigma. Then Piero bought it, who just called me last week to say hello because he hasn't talked to me in a while. He wanted to build botels, and the community freaked out because people didn't want that kind of an impact. And so we had taken one of our wooden boats, Jessie Bell, up to Tarpon Springs to be pulled on rails because it's wood and you need to do them on railroad tracks. And we spent $12,000. That was the bill in the end. And I was like, oh my God, I can't. The boat's probably not worth $12,000. So I had called Piero and I said, hey, if you go to sell that, would you let me know? And he's like, I'll sell it. And he actually gave me a number right then, and I went and got some partners because I didn't really have any money, which never really stops me apparently. But that's part of the building today. So it's Cortez Cove Marina. And I had partners from Sweden, but they sold their shares. They're trying to divest from the U.S. and Helena and Fernando own it. It's a working boatyard. We pull all our boats there. They do a nice job. Most of their work is high-end, comes from Longboat Key. It's funny to see our boats tucked in amongst those like really nice, beautiful boats, but I think our boats are smarter. They're more beautiful on their work boats, so they have a reason for being. That's the travel lift, 70,000 pounds travel lift. Trigger Mora built those piers for me. Again, that's just the marina. I think there's a couple shots. That's a marina. A couple shots coming of couple more, keep going. There. And there's always manatees in the basin back there. It's pretty cool. That's a mother and a baby. I don't know if you can see them. They're both there, though. Little baby. There's a little boy. Yeah, there's a little kid watching somewhere. But anyway, that's you can always find them there. It's kind of interesting. Again, just the boatyard. Tide Tables is a new venture. That was a funny story because the trailer park had leased their little bait house to, I don't know how they were getting these people, but they were not business people. They were generally, one man they found showering drunk in the bathroom, though they had rented it to, and he's naked, and it was just a mess. So they asked me to make it a star too, and I said, well, one, I would never do that, and two, I didn't have the energy to do it. But so then I got with Bobby Woodson, who I don't know if any of you know him, but the family's been here forever. He worked at the Seafood Shack for like 26 years, then he had gone into construction. But anyway, he's my partner, and he did a phenomenal job with this property. It was a teeny little bait house, and we reconfigured it. Bobby actually physically did it. Flip two more, Karen. It's just right. It's flip one more. One more. Sorry, one more. I'm trying to get to the inside. Okay, see up there, there's some of the beacons and buoys. But the best thing about this property, well, one, the fish mostly all comes from AP Bell, so off our boats. But it's the most beautiful view of the sunset. So you're looking due west with the island right there. But it's really cute. There's, I think, flip one more. There's one more. Okay, see, someone gave him the naked mermaid. So that is, you would not believe the draw of it. I guess the guys might believe it. I don't know, but they come, like, you'll see young guys on spring break, like, upside down, literally with their camera like this, trying to take their picture with her over their head. I mean, it's like, it's ridiculous. But anyway, they call her Cortez Mary. But anyway, that's just the interior bar. This bar is kind of cool because we put all the resin, and there's old photos and some, net mending needles and just kind of old local stuff in there. Bobby does a good job with that. He's hardcore, I'll tell you what. You don't want to mess with him. I'm like, I don't ever fire anyone. I swear to God, he fires someone every week. I'm just like, he's brutal. Yeah, I'm like, wow. I'm more tolerant, I guess. That's just the outside of it. It's real pretty. And then I wanted to end on basically the museum. Ed mentioned it. If you haven't been there, it's beautiful. They do such a nice job. It's the displays are on commercial fishing. It's truly one of the only commercial fishing museums in the state, I believe. And it ties to the Fish Preserve, which is the fish stands for the Florida Institute for Saltwater Heritage. The museum, we have a lot to thank Chip Shore for. I don't know if anyone remembers him. He was our clerk of court who died a couple of years ago. Mm-hmm. But we had gone to the county. There was a grant opportunity with the Florida Communities Trust to purchase that property from the gentleman who had bought it from the county. And we asked if we could write a grant, would they partner with us? And we had like 10 days to do it. And Ernie Paget was who the county administrator was, and he was phenomenal. They're still dear friends of mine, Ernie and Lydia. But they said, okay, go ahead. We ranked number 2 or 3, I can't remember, of throwing this massive grant together. Maggie Marr was phenomenal. Sarasota Bay Estuary Program helped. They did most of the work. They gave me, like, here, you answer this question. I just did little bits of it. But we ranked either 2 or 3, and the county got that property. And so I'm so glad because it's just such a nice addition, not only just for Cortez, but for the industry as a whole, because people come and they get to see what commercial fishing is all about and what that village does for the community and actually the country and the world as far as I'm concerned. I think the balance are just some museum pictures, and then I just end with a few sunsets because truly we have the most beautiful sunsets here. I mean, anywhere here. I look out my office I try to make sure I look at it at least for a few minutes every evening because it's, especially right now with the rainstorms, you know how they turn that vibrant red? What is it, the saying, sailors, red at night, sailors delight. That's it, yeah, that's the one. But anyway, okay. Yeah, that's just, again, museum pictures. You can see it for yourself if you go through there.
So Cortez is one of the oldest continual operating fishing villages in the United States, Karen. How many are there, do you know?
No, I don't. And the sad thing is I don't know how many of them you would still consider commercial. Like, St. Augustine has a commercial fishery, but Everglades City, hardly at all. But they're still active, but it's more restaurants. So again, it goes back to striking that balance between like overkill. You know, you just don't want to make it just about the tourists. You have to find that balance. And it's sometimes hard to do. Oh, that's the 2 acres I bought. This is funny. So we're clearing it because it's all peppers, and it took some doing. Frank Agnelli did it for me. And you can go to the next one. So people are driving by like, you're ruining Cortez, you know, screaming out the window. I'm like, shut up. They don't even know what we're doing. That was the old Seafood Shack billboard. And of course, I had to upgrade that a little bit. And so I put the restaurants and those are the logos that go on the boats, and just some sunset pictures. And that's it.
Have any pictures of the cultural center?
No, I'm sorry. I'm embarrassed to say I haven't. Don't tell them.
I'm telling them.
Oh, no, don't tell the museum. The Kay will kill me. That's my dad's cousin. Kay Bell is the president of the Historical Society. So I need to get some. I'll go the next time I do this. I always add more photos, and I haven't done that one.
Does anyone have any questions for Karen? Yes.
Karen, when are we going to get back all the movie?
Would you mind using the microphone, sir, for the
Oh, yeah,
camera?
yeah, yeah.
I'm sorry?
When are we going to get back some of the movie industry? Do we remember we had 2 or 3 movies filmed, Out of Great Expectation and
Right.
Out of Time?
You know, I don't know. They sought us out both times. I don't know how that happens. If someone pitched it, maybe, I think one of them, Sarasota, there's some company there that had actually submitted photos. I think that's how
I don't have any local yokels here, but it's 2 great movies you should look at. Especially
Great Expectations and Out of Time.
Denzel.
Yeah, Denzel Washington. He actually, in between, when he would be filming, he'd come on our fuel dock, and he was fishing. He caught a sheephead. They said he was really nice. I didn't meet him.
Yeah.
They said he was really nice.
Part of that movie was also down in Placida,
Which
Any other
one?
questions?
the Out of Time.
Out of Time.
Yeah.
That was some of the cinematography in that one. I thought was spectacular because they showed a lot of the. Well, so did Great Expectations, but yeah, it's such a pretty area. It's not hard to make it look good.
Okay.
Well, I had a question. In the beginning, maybe it was just my eyes, did I see 2 spellings of the name Bell?
You did, because my dad, our last name has no E on the end. It's just Bell. But all the boats, he did like a Southern Belle. So all the boats have E on the end.
I'm just curious.
Yeah, it's actually, you don't know how many times I see people put an E on the end of my name, which doesn't matter. But no, it's 2 different spellings.
So what way do you prefer?
Well, the correct way is no E. I mean, that's my legal
Okay.
name. This is a funny story, though. My full name is Karen Lee Jane Bell. But when my dad, I guess he was in charge of getting my social security number, he put J for Jane, which I'm named after my Lee Jane, my grandmother on my mom's side. But all my other paperwork is L, Karen L. But so the boat is Karen J, because, again, he did the boat. So it's wrong. But it doesn't really matter, and they call it Coringe Bell.
Okay, any other questions? Yes.
Karen, you briefly mentioned the fish preserve. I was wondering if you could talk about how that fits into your vision of the future of the community, and specifically the balance between the fishing industry, sustainability, and tourism.
Well, the fish preserve was kind of a fluke, how that all came about. Linda Malto and I were sitting, I don't know why we were talking about it, but we said, why don't we let's see if we can buy it. And so I was sent out into Mayaca, actually out into Arcadia, and I met with a gentleman who was good friends with the owner. He's a realtor, Turner was his name, something Turner. He's still out there, he's like 98. But anyway, Louise and Carl Shuey owned that property. And we had made a deal where when I went and talked to them, they said they would donate it. The selling price was $500,000, but they would take a $250,000 donation. But then, because it had been a dump at some point, people had used it for a dump, they decided it was too hard to get the donation, the valuation to prove that they donated $250,000. So they sold it to us for $250,000. And the whole idea behind buying that property was honestly to protect the mangroves, because it's 70 acres of mangroves and 23 acres of uplands. And we didn't want those mangroves to be built upon. And just for the case, I'm real big on property rights. I think if someone has owns property, they should be allowed to do something with it, but in a way that's respectful to the earth. But there's a balance there too. Like all this fighting, this litigation that goes on and on about, you know, I've said over and over, someone needs to call Carlos and say, sell it to the county. I talked to Charlie Hunsaker. I said, you all need to buy that. And he said, well, you're right. We don't have any south properties. But anyway, you know, honestly, no one wins in these fights. I mean, I guess you win, but the lawyers win. They make a lot of money. When truly, we should put our dollars where our mouths is and go buy it. Put it on the county referendum for a penny per, you know, whatever that thing is on your tax bill. I should know what it is. But anyway, the whole point of buying that was let's protect those mangroves. Let's put a park in the front where everybody can use it. And that's what we've done. I mean, unfortunately, it's a slow process. We've even butted heads on within Fish itself. But ultimately, that property is protected. With the county, then we asked them to put a conservation easement over, so even if Fish falls apart, which at times I feel like it's going to, I mean, not really, but it seems like the tension can be insurmountable, but that property will never be developed, and that was our ultimate goal. And two, it acts as a buffer to the village, so we'll never have additional encroachment from that side. We might have it from the north. And again, you know, I like let me talk for a minute about the Prestons who are developing that, the north side, you know. They're phenomenal people. They're farmers. They're people who, they worked hard. And I respect them. And I respect that they're going to try to do something with their land that's like, I asked him, I said, Whiting, please put an acre, a house or something. He's like, oh, we can't do that. And I know there's that balance of money. You know, they want to make a return on what they've been doing, but still, you have to take all that into account, and I'm so not, I don't like the fighting. I don't get it. I don't like when you can't go and talk to somebody about something. And it seems like the world today, and not to get in on politics, but I don't understand what's happened where rude is okay. Or any of you can disagree with me, and I wouldn't be mad at you, and I'd say, okay, you know, well, I disagree, and you'd move on. But something's amiss today where we're just like everybody's just out for themselves, and now I'm getting like, I don't know, philosophical. Sorry.
When you say north, is that the property over by the seafood shack?
No, north, I'm sorry, I think it's called something Bay, Peninsula Bay, I believe, and it's the Preston's Gladiola Farm. It's it's by Sunny Shores, on both sides of Sunny Shores. It kind of encircles it. Yeah, there's like 3,000 homes, I think, going in there, which is like, you know, but again, if you owned it, you know, what would you do? And you have to, I think, always look at that and try to work with the people instead of just this, like, out to kill people, you know, anyway. But it's.
I was curious about what's happening about that. Because
remember
months ago there was all this write-up, these people bought that property, they were going to put a high-end RV park there.
Yes, they're actually my partners, the Swedish people who left the Marina. They still own that. They sold it to a gentleman named, I can't remember his name, but he seems nice enough. What is his name?
Sven, I'm kidding.
No.
He was
no, he's
he was local, wasn't he?
Yeah, he's doing that development called, my name, by Fiddler's Green on 75th, back in there.
Okay.
Magellan or something homes. I don't know. Anyway, he's a developer, and I'm sure not all developers are bad, so let's hope for the best. But they're going to be small little structures, and yeah, more cars, more traffic, hard to believe for the bridge, but again.
So you hadn't heard it for a while.
I think they're still moving forward. I think the paperwork's in the county. I'm sure there'll be public hearings where people will be able to voice their opinion, but.
Okay, so any other questions real quick? So Karen, just real quick, your hope for the future, and who is going to carry on your legacy?
I don't know. I keep watching my nephews and nieces, and I'm worried because some of them I can just discount right now, which sounds awful because they're all 20 to 30. But
They're all millennials, right?
yeah, but they have the weirdest. Like I've had to. It's funny. I always tell this story, and I've had to fire my niece twice. But we always end up back together so far. But she cussed out a police officer. Who does that over her boyfriend who was robbing people? And I said, you will not work here and represent this family that way. Who cusses at a police officer? I don't get it. I don't understand it. And then I had to fire her another time when she did something really horrendous. I felt horrendous. But they do look at things differently. I have one nephew who I'm hoping he works, so he's got a great job at a marina. He builds trailers, an engineer, design engineer, and he makes a lot of money, and he does well. He lives in the village and he loves to fish. So he's one hope. And then my other niece, she's a Buccaneers cheerleader. She's beautiful. I've tried to get her to work at the market, but I don't think she's too interested yet. But anyway, I don't know. And the funny thing I said to my one uncle, no, I said in the newspaper once, I hope it goes on for generations. And my uncle's like, he wants to sell it, right? And he's like, who are you talking about? And I go, well, any of the kids, I don't have kids, but any of them, I don't know, maybe I'll adopt a child.
Just so you can have somebody carry on the
Yeah,
tradition,
I don't
right?
know, do something. But,
Hey, that sounds like a good plan.
Yeah, hopefully it'll be there, hopefully, for a while.
Yeah. All right. Thank you
Forever,
very much,
hopefully.
Karen. We
Oh, you're
appreciate
welcome.
it.
Sure.
Thank you.